All right. Good morning, everybody. Well, whenever you're watching this, good morning, good afternoon. What did Jim Carrey say on the Truman Show? Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to a brand new edition of Holding Court here on the First State Hoops Report YouTube channel. I am, of course, First State Hoops Report founding editor and Holding Court host Chris Stevens. Let me get this camera straight because I don't want to be looking down at y'all. I want to be like straight. All right, I'm straight ahead. There we go. All right, welcome to a brand new edition of Holding Court with Chris Stevens for FSHR founding editor and, of course, host of this particular vlog. Hopefully, you all are enjoying your Independence Day holiday weekend. If you're down at the beach, be careful because I ain't a beach person. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. The water is not my thing. I mean, I can do the pool. Shouts out to former Del Castle boys coach Chris Law. We were talking at the Duffy's Hope draft a couple weeks ago. He's like, really, because I'm, trying to, get back into my physical fitness journey. And Coach Laws was like, you know what? You should hit the pool because the pool will definitely take care of everything that you're trying to do. So shouts out to Chris Laws for that little bit of advice. I can do the pool, but I can't do the ocean. Can't do the rivers. Can't do the lakes. Do you know we only know about 15% of what's in the waters around the world? That's why it was foolish for those folks to get on that submarine to go see the Titanic. Why would you want to go see the Titanic up close and personal when you could just get the DVD and watch Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet? I'm just saying. But anyway, if you're down at the beach, if you're going to cook out, and if you're going to do some fireworks, for God's sake, please don't end up like Jason Pierre-Paul. Step away from the fireworks before you set the fireworks off. That's the most important thing. Anyway, hopefully you all are enjoying your holiday weekend. This edition of Holding Court, we're going to get into some NBA, a little bit more about the transfer stuff going on around Delaware. And, I had some thoughts about some of Delaware's best basketball players, so from an all-time perspective, because, we'll hop into that right now, honestly, because the big news in free agency is that free agency in the NBA is on and popping. And, of course, Wilmington's own and Salesianum legend Dante DiVincenzo cashed out big with the New York Knicks, 4 years, $50 million. He will be joining his former Villanova teammates, Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson. And that Knicks team, as presently constituted, I would have to put them a step above the Sixers, and I will tell you why in a minute. But we have to talk about Dante's path, to a pretty rich contract. I mean, it's not the max, but it's still pretty doggone good. $12.5 million a year. You can't beat that with a stick. It's about $11.999 million more than most of us are making at this point in time in our lives. And you got to think from the time he was 16 to 24-ish, he won 2 state championships with Sal's. He won 2 NCAA championships with Villanova and won an NBA championship with the Milwaukee Bucks. That, from adolescence to young adulthood, is a nice little. You get to celebrate a championship every other year. Can't beat it, man. And he's been one of the greatest players our state has produced. And another one has just earned another honor, which isn't a surprise to anybody. Elena Deladon was named a All-Star reserve for the WNBA All-Star Game, which takes place July 16th in Vegas. This will be her 7th appearance. And I think what people miss about Elena's path is that, she didn't go to UConn, but she had the University of Delaware hosting NCAA tournament regionals. Like, yeah, we know the UD has hosted, like, I'm just going to go ahead and tell my age here, the North, what was that conference the UD was in before? Wasn't the Northeast? I can't remember the name of the conference. It's going to kick my butt for the rest of this episode, but I know it was a conference before the America East, because the America East was where UD won a couple of championships under Mike Bray, with Sanford coach Tyrone Perry as his point guard. He had guys like Darryl Presley, Billy Wells, a couple other guys like that. But yeah, UD's hosted conference tournaments. They've hosted the Colonial, they've hosted the America East, but to host an NCAA regional, that should tell you something about the impact of Elena Deladon. And she's probably, would I say she's the top basketball player the state has produced? I would say yes. Probably one of the top 3 or 4 athletes also. The only couple people I may put above her are Delano DeShields and Randy White. That's about it. That's about it. And, for her to get back to an all-star game, after, dealing with her Lyme disease diagnosis and, just having to be mindful of that because, in the time of COVID, when people didn't take COVID seriously, Lyme disease is an autoimmune disorder that you really have to, be on top of. And, if you haven't read the stories about, what the medications Elena takes and all of that, it's pretty extensive. So for her to get back to form and, be mindful of her health, still, be a present, guardian to her sister and, be a present partner to her wife, that's pretty doggone impressive. So to be able to get back to form and ball the way she's balled, like she absolutely is probably one of the best athletes this state has ever produced. And it's good to see people from Delaware shining because we'll talk more about why, the transfer portal is really, disheartening for a lot of us who came up, watching, people, those of us who watched Elena and Dante as journalists, and those of us who were even older to watch people like Lenny Brown and Gary Lumpkin and, folks like that go to play major Division I college basketball and not have to leave Delaware to do it. It's very disheartening. But, shouts out to Dante and Elena. Very, we're all very proud of them. We are happy to see them shine. We're happy to see them get rich. Same for Benaj Delaney, who is playing a pivotal role with the New York Liberty from a defensive standpoint. And Bones Highland, of course, who is possible if that Harden thing works out, and I'll talk more about the Sixers in a minute because them boys got on my nerves so bad this year, and this summer has been no exception. If Bones comes home, then that's going to be a very interesting thing, possibly. But he could possibly be in a Harden deal, but he's with the Clippers now, and we've got again. I say it all the time. We have 4 professional basketball players playing in the United States that did not have to leave Delaware to be seen. Like they all played every minute of their high school ball in Delaware. Bones at St. George's, Benijah at Smyrna, Elena at Ursuline, Dante at Sally's. It's there. We have we have kids that are talented, and we have the programs in certain spots that are able to give these kids this the exposure that they want, but it just doesn't connect the way that people wanted to connect, and that's why the instant gratification of everything. But yeah, let me talk about the Sixers, and then I'll get more into the transfer portal stuff because we have a transfer portal in Delaware, and it is popping. Please believe it is popping. But the Sixers, of course, if you guys missed it, I was on a radio show about 2 months ago. Shout out to my guys Roy Burton and Chris Domingo of the Broad Street Line on 106.5 Philly Cam Radio. We gave a post-mortem about the Sixers after they got their doors blown off by the Celtics in the Eastern Conference semifinals, and a lot has changed since then. For one, Doc Rivers is gone. Nick Nurse is the coach. This past Friday, James Harden opted in for his player option with the expectation that the Sixers are going to deal him. And Sixers have lost a lot, in terms of spare parts this summer. Montrezl Harrell has opted out. Shake Milton signed with the Minnesota Timberwolves. George Niang signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Was it Cleveland or Indiana? I can't remember if it was Cleveland or Indiana, but he's gone. Jalen McDaniels, who they traded Matisse Thybulle for, and he gave us absolutely nothing. Signed a 2-year deal with the Toronto Raptors. So this Sixer bench is looking very thin at the moment. I'm guessing whatever parts they get in the Harden trade, will probably assuage that. But right now, the Sixers are a team in decline because this is the second consecutive year they have not had a draft pick. Not even a first-round pick. They didn't even have a second-round pick in 2022 or this year's draft. So if you are going to try to build a team around Joel Embiid, and let me remind y'all, the clock is now ticking, on the Joel Embiid era here in Philadelphia. The process as we know it died when the NBA forced Sam Hinkie out and put Brian Colangelo in as general manager. So the process, we knew it to start, been dead a long time. But the guy who is probably the star pupil, the valedictorian, the salutatorian, the magna cum laude of the process is probably going to ask for a trade within the next year or so. Absolutely. It's either going to be New York, it's going to be Miami, possibly Dallas. I don't know. But the Embiid era is not long for this world, I fear. And it's unfortunate because, this Sixers team should have had at least one NBA Finals appearance. Not saying championship, because would that team have beat Phoenix in 21? I'm not sure. Would that team have beat, definitely wouldn't beat Golden State in 2018. 2019, possibly, but 2021 is going to be the one that probably sticks with us for a long time because in Australian rules, Chris Dudley decided he couldn't be bothered to improve his game or even dunk a basketball in the Game 7 at home against a subpar Atlanta Hawks team. So 2021 is going to hurt. Like, there have been playoff failures. Like, the Sixers' history is littered with playoff failures. Really quickly, 1965, Game 7 in Boston Garden. Bill Russell throws the ball off a guide wire that was coming out of the bowels of the building, and was ruled out of bounds back then. So the Sixers were down 1, had a chance to go for the win. John Havlicek jumps in front of Chet Walker to steal the ball. One of the greatest plays in NBA history. 1968, Sixers are up 3-1 against the Celtics in the Eastern Division Finals. Billy Cunningham breaks his wrist. That kills the Sixers then. 1981, once again, up 3-1. To the Celtics, lose to the Eastern Conference Finals because, they just couldn't be bothered to rebound. What other playoff failure can I think of? I don't know if I count 2003 as a failure. That team had probably gone as far as it was going to go under Larry Brown. And, that Detroit team was bubbling. The Sixers barely got out of the first round against New Orleans Hornets. They were the New Orleans Hornets. Then, of course, they're New Orleans Pelicans now. But, yeah. But yeah, if you really want to just talk about playoff failures, the most recent ones, of course, have been ones during the Embiid era. And not all of that can be attributed to Joel, but this last one could be. Absolutely. Like, this dude was named the MVP of the league, and he just absolutely disappeared in Game 7. Like, Jokic looked at that and said, okay, let me show you what a real MVP does. And that's what he did. He literally, not saying that Denver Nuggets team wasn't very good. Like, you can't be a one-man team and win a championship. That's just not how it works. But when you have that guy as your lead man, as your alpha, as your lead dog, you're going to go far. And he just, said, okay, all right, you guys don't want to give me a third straight MVP? I'll just go ahead and take this finals MVP. And that's how it worked out. And, Embiid literally just quit. And the guy that they're trying to get rid of, he absolutely quit. Like, we knew this was going to happen. Anybody who has watched James Harden's career from the time he absolutely stunk in the 2012 NBA Finals against the Miami Heat, we just knew that this dude just didn't have the makeup to be a championship competitor. He went and said, okay, I'm going to take the bag and break up this Thunder team instead of, coming back and being better and playing my part and getting KD and Russ rings. Like, KD went ahead and said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and join this little super team here in Golden State and get myself a couple rings. And Russ, he stayed down. He stayed loyal. He did his thing. He made he was, MVP, triple-double machine. He'll probably go down as one of the best players of his era, even though his ending right now looks kind of shaky. But Harden just doesn't have the whatever it is that a lot of players have. Like, Jordan had it. Magic had it. Kareem had it. Steph has it. LeBron has it. Jokic has it. Harden ain't got it. Whatever it is. And I'm starting to think that Joel Embiid doesn't have it either. Like, there's just a point in time where you just have to say, okay, you know what? People have defended this man long term because, remember, he sat out his first 2 years in the league with those foot problems. Then his rookie year does something to his knee. Then he busts his face up, first playoff appearance. Knee problems again. Busts up his face again. Broken hand. Wrist ligaments. He's the Sixers version of Bill Walton, pretty much. And that's a crazy thing to say because if you put the numbers beside each other, Joel Embiid has had a better career than Bill Walton. But at the same time, if we're just talking about Portland Bill Walton and San Diego Bill Walton, not even talking about the Celtics Bill Walton, because Celtics Bill Walton was just the guy that was just happy to get out of that Clippers situation and play with Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Dennis Johnson and all of those guys. But Walton couldn't stay healthy during those early years in Portland. The 1 year he was healthy was the year they won the championship. Embiid, He has his moments where, he looks like the most dominant player on the floor, and that was pretty much the case all this year. He led the league in scoring. I think he was the first center to average like 30 points in back-to-back years since Wilt, if I'm not mistaken. So, or maybe it was since Kareem actually. But yeah, it just has to be a point where you have to want it for yourself, and that's why as bad as Doc Rivers was, and Doc Rivers was not the correct coach for this team. Like, he wasn't even Daryl Morey's first choice. Like, Morey got there and saw Doc and was like, well, I guess I'll make this work, or try to. He tried. It didn't work. But when we're talking about, players that just have to have it in order to be successful, in order to be a champion, James Harden darn sure don't got it. And I don't think Joel Embiid does either. Like, if Embiid goes to Miami and wins a championship with his homeboy Jimmy Butler, cool. But that's not going to be a Joel Embiid championship. That's going to be more of a byproduct of another super team. And, when you tout yourself as the best big man in the game, you got to play like it when it counts. And that game 7 was just absolutely miserable. Like, I didn't even watch it. I Twitter watched it. I just watched everybody on social media talking about how the Sixers were just getting their doors blown off, Jason Tatum going off for 51 points. And I was like, yep, that's how it was going to end. That's absolutely how it was going to end. Because I just had no faith in that team after they kicked the bucket in that game 6 at home. And when you're up, up a couple possessions with about 3 or 4 minutes left, you should be able to close out that game on your home floor. They didn't do it. And I knew they weren't going to stand a chance in game 7 in Boston. And that's exactly what happened. But where do the Sixers go from here? I don't know. Because whatever you're going to get from Harden for Harden, it's probably not going to be enough to make you a contender in the East, especially if Dame goes to Miami or Brooklyn. Oh yeah, Damian Lillard. Finally, our long national nightmare is over. That man finally requested a trade. Dame Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers were that married couple who outgrew each other, but didn't want to call it quits. It's like that old OJ song. Your body's here with me, but your mind is on the other side of town. You're messing me around. Your body's here with me, but your mind is on the other side of town. Okay, I'm done. All right. But yeah, they finally agreed that, Dame finally came to his senses and realized that, okay, it's cool to be Mr. Loyal, stay down, don't run from the grind, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or whatever. But, you want to win a championship. If you're thought of as one of the best players in the league and the top 75 in NBA history, you want to win. And that Blazers team, as presently constituted, is not going to win a doggone thing anytime soon. So it just makes sense for him to say, finally, okay, all right, you know what? I've done as much as I could here in Portland. I want to go see if I can win somewhere else. And here we are. And I think what probably, and I caught so much wreck on Facebook yesterday on my personal Facebook page. Like, I didn't put it on the First Day Hoops Report page because that would just be silly. But on my personal Facebook page, where I can say the comments of this person do not reflect that of First Day Hoops Report or even my other employer, HBCU Sports. So I said, keep Dame the overrated away from the Sixers, and people jumped on my back. Here's my thing. Dame Lillard is a talented player. Make no mistake about it. He can score the ball. He can dish. He defends. He rebounds. I'm not saying he's not a great player. I'm not saying he's not an MVP caliber player. I'm just saying he's not going to make the Sixers a championship contender. The Sixers have to, use an old folks saying, cut their nose off to spite their face. There's nothing they can do at this point that can make them competitive with Boston, better than Miami. They're not even better than the Knicks at this point. I don't think they're absolutely not better than Milwaukee, because Milwaukee got Chris Middleton back. They still have Giannis, of course, which is, of course, the wild card in all of this. So I don't know. And you got to think that, the teams that were bubbling under, like, who I think who would be better next year? I'm trying to think. Orlando's probably going to be better. Charlotte's on their way to improving. This Sixers team is falling down a cliff back towards a process era. And I think it'll probably be uglier because people are going to see that this team squandered all that talent. When you take into account Embiid, Simmons, Markelle Fultz. I got to say I'm happy for Markelle Fultz, by the way. That young man, he tried. He had problems with his shoulder. He probably should have disclosed those a little earlier because, apparently it was an off-season bike accident that led to his shoulder issues. But we ran him out of town on a rail, and he's probably one of the best, change of pace guards in the league right now. I'm not saying his shooting has improved that much, but he has improved as a complete player, and he can still score. Like, he even said himself, he said he wished it could have worked out in Philly because honestly, if you have a Markelle Fultz, then you can easily, you probably could have dumped Simmons for Tyrese Halliburton, like as earlier was suggested in previous summers. And of course, Tyrese Halliburton just signed a huge $52 million a year deal with the Indiana Pacers. And Tyrese Halliburton is funny because he didn't tweet an announcement. He tweeted a 30-second video of the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase's signature laugh. And if you're not familiar with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, just go to YouTube. Just look up Ted DiBiase. One of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time, but the greatest character of all time he ever played was the $1 Million Man and the $1 Million Champion in the WWF. I used to be able to do the Ted DiBiase laugh. I'm not going to try it now because it's early in the morning and I'm still trying to wake up and my voice is still kind of. But the Ted DiBiase laugh is one of the greatest laughs of all time. And that's what Tyrese Halliburton posted after he signed his $52 million a year extension. Okay, so the Sixers, where do they go from here? I don't know. We could just count that Harden is gone, thank God. Embiid is gone. That's going to be awkward. Tyrese Maxey, G. Johnson, Mr. Strictly GP, he told me on Facebook, you can build any team. You can get Tyrese Maxey in the draft every year, which I find to be kind of, yeah, maybe, I guess. But that young man I feel like he has the potential to be a multiple-time All-Star and MVP candidate. I don't know if the Sixers can build around him, but they can build some parts with him, I feel like. But, we'll just have to see, if they can get rid of Harden and, get some value back in return. And Lillard has said his preferred destination is Miami. So you'd be really just, once again, cutting your nose off to spite your face if you trade Maxey to Portland for Dame Lillard because he doesn't want to be there. So that's where we are with that. And that's my thoughts on the NBA. And then, of course, HoldingCourt, of course, talks about high school basketball in Delaware. And then I mentioned in the outset, the transfer portal popping once again. Again, these moves is kind of considered like, that period in the NBA where it's like you can start negotiating, but you can't really announce any moves until a certain date. And a lot of kids are moving places, like kids are going to Penn, kids are going to West Nottingham Academy, all these different places that, it's like Mr. Curtis Watkins said. Curtis Watkins, who, has been on this beat for 35, 40 years, just about, works for DE Preps now. He would say to me all the time, don't talk to me about where anybody is until August 15th. And I keep that in mind all the time. Like literally, when I hear about this kid moving or that kid moving, I'm like, well, I will know for sure when August 15th comes around, because that's when fall practice usually starts. For football this year, it's going to start August 7th because there are a few teams that are going to be playing August 31st and that weekend. And I'm very disappointed that I won't be able to go to the Howard Hodgson game because I'll probably be covering Lincoln University's home opener for HBCU sports. Whew. When you got to stay busy, you kind of miss out on some things. But I really hope that Howard Hodgson game is a good one because it always has been that way since I was in high school. But yeah, the transfer portal on a high school level is disappointing, and I've talked about it before. Certain schools are more equipped to keep kids than others, and that is why a lot of movement is happening, because a lot of kids are seeing like, oh wow, I could get the social media treatment here, or I can get the highlight reel package here, and it's like a what can you do situation. Like if you're a school district, like I've mentioned before, like Christiana, Red Clay, struggling to stay afloat, you just you can't put your resources into sports when you need to be putting resources into making sure kids have books and that your cafeteria food is, up to date and in code with health regulations and all of that good stuff. Not saying anybody has any food violations. I'm just saying, these are just some of the things that school districts have to keep in mind. Like, you have to make sure kids have books. You need to make sure they have clean classrooms, clean bathrooms, clean cafeteria. You got to make sure that they're safe. These are the things that, kind of are a problem with the commercialization of sports, is that if we're going to start, putting sports budgets in high schools, and Brahim Wilson, who of course now is the head women's basketball coach at Cecil Community College, he mentioned to me at Duffy's that most cities that are like big time, like Philadelphia, DC, New York, they have a competitive sports budget. Wilmington does not have such a thing. And I don't know why, because our kids want to compete just as bad as the kids from Philly, DMV, Jersey, New York City. Why not? Why don't we have a competitive sports budget? They make room for everything else. You can get stuff built down the riverfront, the new condos that are going up, across South Bridge. The city's changed so much. And I could talk about that forever. And I would probably, ruffle some feathers if I did. But, maybe I will one day. Maybe one day I'll cut loose. I hold back on a lot because as a journalist, my duty is to give y'all the straight facts. If I gave you my feelings on everything, then I would not be a trustworthy source. But there are some things about the way the city has changed, the way high school sports have changed, that really just, are a stake in the heart for me. You know what I'm saying? Like the way I came up was a lot different than the way, we're seeing kids today. And even folks that are older than me know what I'm talking about. But yeah. The city has, money for, riverfront concerts, this cafe, that outlet, this condo high rise or whatever. But we still don't have a public high school. We don't have a public school system in the city of Wilmington. Red Clay and Christiana are just, pulling, and Brandywine are pulling kids, and Newcastle County Votech, don't forget, are pulling kids from, the city. And even what really boggles the mind is that Colonial still has a segment of Riverside that kids get on a bus and go to William Penn for. Why? I don't know. I really don't know. But overall, there's so much that has changed in these kids. The kids, I talked to, and I was talking about it with another coach on Facebook, was that a lot of these kids are getting advice from people who are either living through the kids or trying to be influencers, clout chasers, trying to make themselves bigger than the game of high school basketball or high school sports, period, here in the state of Delaware. There are a lot of people out here that are literally just like grown people, trying to affect the futures of high school athletics and high school kids, so they can be seen, so they can be, in the mix. And that's probably why, a lot of times, people play favorites in with media. And I've already mentioned this before, so you already know what I'm talking about. But, if you're going to play favorites with who can come and cover events, then you can't really consider yourself for the culture. You can't consider yourself someone of substance. You can't consider yourself someone who literally has the best interest of the kids and the game at heart. And that's just, and I'm going to stand on that like I stand on anything else I say. Like people literally just, feel like, okay, I can, affect things this way. I can affect things that way. And doesn't matter what happened with the kids. It's just that, okay, I'm out here. Look at me. There are a lot of people out here like that are just like, look at me. And it's like, okay, we see. Doesn't mean we we don't see through you. Yes, we see you, but we absolutely see through you as well. Those are just my thoughts on the matter. But I hope the kids that are transferring, at the end of the day, to quote Stephen A. Smith, at the end of the day, I just want to see everybody succeed. I want to see everybody happy. I want to see people do well. It's important not to bring the kids into it because, the kids are just like, they're innocent. They're 14, 18 years old. Like, there's not a lot that you can, just say, okay, blame a kid on. They're just only doing what they're told from adults because that's what they're supposed to do until they're up to 18, 19, 20, 21 years old or whatever. As long as that the parent has custody, you got to do what they say. I mean, those are the facts. But I want these kids to succeed. I want them all to thrive, and that's why First Day Hoops Reports exists in the first place. Because getting out the games and getting seeing these kids shine, talking to them, putting together highlight packages and news reports, it's fun. It's a great time, and we will continue to do so until something else changes. But I don't think anything's going to change. It's going to be so different because now you got to figure out who's going where, how this will affect the way the team plays. Top 10s. I mean, my top 10 for boys and girls last week is already in the dumpster. that top 10 I did last week is already history. That's why I said it was a way too early top 10, because I didn't know that the moves were happening until parents started reaching out to me and say, hey, just want to let you know this kid is probably going to be going here. This kid is probably going to be going there. This kid is leaving here. This kid is leaving there. And I'm just like, what? Wait, what happened? And again, I appreciate these folks that reach out to me, and that's why I don't say names. That's why I don't, say what schools or whatever, because the important thing as a journalist is that, people get mad when people say my sources say, or this says, and it's like, you have to, keep some confidentiality and some anonymity. Yes, that's what I meant to say. Anonymity, because, people don't want, to be thought of as, the town crier or whatever. And, people can just tell you things that are happening, and then, you can report them as you see them fit. So, these are things, that I'm hearing from people that are, have had kids that have played or may have, known kids that have played. And it's like, I would never just totally, put a name or a face or an affiliation to it, because it's like, I would just be, shooting myself in the foot. Or, shout out to Plaxico Burst, that type of thing. I'm just not going to shoot myself in the foot when I want to make First Day Hoops Report the best thing it can be. And that's just something that I learned in J school way over 20 years ago, almost 25 years ago. Good Lord. Time flies, people. Time flies. And that also means that his time is over for this edition of HoldingCourt. Greatly appreciate y'all's time as always. Thank y'all for vibing with me. Everything that you need to keep in contact with us will be in the description below. I don't even know if I want to put the Twitter feed up anymore, because that doggone Elon Musk, boy, I ain't going to lie to you. When you're a billionaire and you can't be bothered to pay the bills, what does that say for the rest of us? If you're not familiar with the Twitter thing, before I sign off real quick, Twitter went down yesterday and is down because Musk and Twitter didn't pay their Google storage bills. So that's why the APIs are all messed up, and that's why that rate limit is in place. Because a guy who apparently is supposed to be this, billionaire tech wizard genius can't be bothered to pay the bills. That's another thing that I could go into whole detail about people like Elon Musk and the people that follow him and the people he follows behind. But that's not the forum for this. This is the forum for basketball. And I greatly thank y'all for vibing with me this week. Once again, the Facebook page, the Instagram page, our website, ways that oh my God. Before I sign off, I'm going to shoot my shot here. First Day Hoops Report has been something I've done out of, pocket for the last 4.5 years. And I'm not complaining, because I love doing it. But at the same time, I want to be able to keep this going and, maybe even bring people on, because people have come up to me and say, yo, I want to be down with First Day Hoops Report. And I'm like, I can't pay you, because I don't even pay myself. So that being said, I am looking for sponsors. I am looking for advertisers. If you want to advertise this program, if you want to advertise a game of the week or the athlete of the week or any other thing that I post on the First Day Hoops Report website, which means I'm probably going to end up start doing some Throwback Thursday stuff in the future. If you want to advertise or sponsor that, you are more than welcome to do so. The email address will be, once again, in the description below. Okay, now I'm done talking. Thank y'all for watching HoldingCourt this week. Enjoy your holiday weekend. Enjoy your summer. I will see you guys at a few different leagues around the city. And, we'll see you guys in the fall for, high school sports. Take care of yourselves and each other.